Welcome, everyone. Kathleen Hood here for Marquis Mondays, a 6-month Lafayette200 Bicentennial series featuring authors who have written books related to the Marquis de Lafayette. During our program, we invite you to submit questions that you might have using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will answer as many questions as time permits. We begin this evening with a riddle. What happens when you combine cheese, an island, 2 cute mice, and the Marquis de Lafayette? The answer? Why, the book Nantucket Cheese for Lafayette, of course. The author of this lovely book is Susan Joy. Susie Joy, is a daughter of the American Revolution and a distant cousin of the Marquis de Lafayette. She found her passion for American history through the many stories that were shared by her mother and father around her Connecticut dinner table when she was a child. She is the co-chair of the New York City American Friends of Lafayette Committee commemorating the bicentennial of Lafayette's farewell tour of America in 1824 and 1825, which takes place in 100 cities and towns in 24 states over 13 months. And it kicked off right in Manhattan on August 16th last year. Susan lives in Naples, Florida, and spends her summers in Woodbury, Connecticut, at her home on the road that French General Rochambeau marched his troops to and from the Battle of Yorktown. She and her husband, Mark Minker, salute each time they pass the commemorative sign marking the French soldiers' route, and reflect on the great sacrifices made by France to help America gain her freedom. It is a pleasure to welcome you, Susan.
Thanks, Kathleen. Yes, we actually do that. It's such a moment in town. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here and to share both the story and the journey that I've had with the American Friends of Lafayette and writing the book Nantucket Cheese for Lafayette. I have so much to share. I don't know where to begin. I wanted to share one picture, which is, let's see, I'm going to put this up on the Zoom screen. So my interest in Lafayette, as Kathleen had said, is very much about loving history and learning history growing up. I think my sister may even be on this Zoom, but really understanding what the importance it was of the sacrifices people made for us during the American Revolution. As Deborah also is a daughter of the American Revolution, you know, we reflect back on the sacrifices made and learning early on that this young Frenchman decided to help us and support us was just fascinating for me. And I ended up really, it was when Alan Hoffman, the president of the American Friends of Lafayette, had shared his translated tome. As many of you know, the book is significant, of Lafayette's return to America in 1824 and 1825. My mother and I went to the New York Historical Society to hear Alan Hoffman speak, and it began, I think it was 2010. And I got to know Alan very well. As a matter of fact, he stayed with us this past weekend in Naples to get out of the Boston/New Hampshire weather. His stories are fascinating. And one of my favorite stories he told was this children's book that was written in the 1950s about this fact that the people on the island of Nantucket actually wanted to thank Lafayette and did so. For any of you who don't know the story, I'll drag it out a little bit longer. Lafayette basically opened free trade between France and the United States to help both economies. And as my niece that you can see in the screen here, who became my illustrator, we were fascinated. We went to the Nantucket Historical Society and discovered that, in fact, in the New Plymouth Gazette, in 1786, they reported that the people of Nantucket actually donated the milk from their cows for one day and made a 500-pound cheese to thank Lafayette for saving their economy, which was absolutely incredible that that was something that they felt was a genuine gift. Lafayette and Adrian, his wife, actually received it. Were very thankful to have it. Apparently, gifts of cheese were very common, despite maybe not knowing that France had plenty of cheese. But the children love it. So I wrote this book. Actually, I wrote the book in an inspiration from the perspective of the mice that I created, as you can see the little mice in the picture there, to tell the story to children. And when Julia and I worked on the story together, we decided to make it more approachable. I will say there are plenty of people, including Diane Shaw from Lafayette College, who's not a small child, but instead is the American Friends of Lafayette curator, archivist. She loves the mice, but the mice ended up to be a great way to interact with younger children and older, to have this endearing moment to learn not just about what Lafayette did to help save the island of Nantucket, but also to weave in, with America 250 coming, to weave in the entire sort of story of who was George Washington, why were the French helping us? And with the illustrations that Julia was able to provide for the book, we had a wonderful, wonderful, you know, easy way to connect. Now, I will tell you, the book was published in the 50s. And Alan Hoffman, who is an attorney, and I tried to get the original publisher who owned the rights to the book to re-release the book. There were certain things in it you probably wouldn't be comfortable with publishing again, so it would have needed to be edited slightly. But since it was factual in history, and we confirmed it at the Historical Society, in Nantucket, we said, let's just rewrite it. It's factual. So that was a fun way to be able to do this. But frankly, I couldn't have done it without my niece. I mean, this story is so special. It was the American Friends of Lafayette were invited to the French embassy and the French consulate. Several of us, and probably some speakers that Kathleen has had present as well, on her speaker series, we were invited to teach to the children. So we had third graders and eighth graders who, I will tell you, the third graders had really good, not that the eighth graders didn't have good questions, but the third graders really did. And we take it from the perspective of sort of a hero and superhero these days. So the writing the book has just been one of the greatest experiences for me, and we have been picked up by a number of different places, including Yorktown, Sturbridge Village, hopefully Mount Vernon, thanks to one of our members soon too. So I can't say enough about how this experience has been for me personally, and to be able to work with my niece as well. So Kathleen, did you have any specific questions? I think you had some questions that you might want to ask me. If not, I will just continue on. And
Susan, you're welcome to continue on. And when you are finished with your presentation, Debbie Thompson, who is a member of DAR and a region of the Octorara chapter, will be joining in, sharing some questions. We also will be presenting at that time some questions from the audience. So you're welcome to continue. I know you have so much to share.
okay, terrific. As Kathleen had said, my husband and I were very involved in the kickoff of the farewell tour, which 13 states, 24 states, 13 months, and 6,000 miles was a lot. And the other sort of fun thing about what I've done in addition to writing the book was to be the chairperson, as Kathleen said, with my husband and Chuck Schwam. What that meant, which is so Lafayette, is it's all about people. And one of the best things I think that came out of both being involved with um, Lafayette as a proto-feminist, we're in Women's History Month, so let's keep in mind he completely respected women, including and especially his wife, which is a whole nother story that hopefully we'll see Catherine Tone coming out with her book soon about Adrienne Lafayette. Of course, we also have Stephanie Dre's book, The Women of Chateau Lafayette. So anyone on this webinar who hasn't looked up Stephanie Dre's book, I highly recommend it. She actually did a review of my book and shout out, which was incredible for me. And for those of you who have any interest in writing books, I will give you a little secret, which is insane. And it was the other friends that have written about Lafayette that I had met. They actually there's something called Kindle Digital Publishing. So the hardest part, well, besides writing it, of course, the hardest part is actually to get it formatted in the way that KDP requires it. But once you do, you upload it into KDP for free. And as long as you haven't said anything horrible, they do a review of the content of the book. And then it's released and available in Amazon. So we were shocked that we could literally be, Julia and I, my niece and I, could have this in publication. Again, once we figured out how to format it, especially an illustrated book, because there's very specific ways to do it, but we were able to upload it. For those of you who think you'll ever make money on a book, don't believe that. The book actually is in Amazon for $19.95, and we get about a $1 royalty. Thankfully, certainly she's got student loans. My husband and I thankfully are doing this as more of a passion to share the story of Lafayette and George Washington and the American Revolution. And it's just been a really, really fun book. The key was that we didn't have to get a publisher because it's really long to find both an editor, publisher, publishing house, all of that. But you can be up in KDP in 24 hours. I was so fortunate that my mother-in-law, Mark's mother, was a New York City school teacher. So she edited and excruciatingly, since I'm a CPA and a math person, she went page by page, word by word to make sure that everything sort of tied together and made sense. So I was very fortunate to have my mother-in-law help me with the book as well. So I'll give you just a brief. I gave you sort of the punchline of the story, but the story starts out with Nantucket being, for those of you who don't know or aren't aware, it's a very small island off the shore of Massachusetts. It is part of Massachusetts. So you immediately think, American Revolution. Okay, we know what's going on. Boston Tea Party. Oh, they're patriots, not loyalists. Well, they were selling their whale oil to the British, and now they couldn't. So they were destitute, and anyone who's been there could see the juxtaposition because it's a very wealthy island, a very exclusive, beautiful, beautiful island. But they had no food, no clothes, so you can imagine the mice telling the story that there were not even any crumbs under the table that mice would normally be able to, gobble up. But they tell, sort of the story of this island, and I explain because there's a whaling museum on the island, and that's a little tricky with children because obviously they were killing the whales for whale oil. And so that's tough, the whole story about whaling in general, but it was the economy. That's what supported their economy. So they stayed neutral despite Massachusetts. The island of Nantucket kind of stayed neutral, and I'm sure they wish they could continue, and the British probably did too. So when they were able to more freely sell, as we say, to light the lamps in Paris, they were ecstatic because then obviously they were able to improve their economic situation. And obviously mice and cheese. We've had, like, oh, why did you pick mice? The female mouse is named after Adrian Lafayette, who was an incredible support. During the American Revolution, Lafayette gets credit, not as much as he should, except Hamilton. We always remember, America's favorite favorite French fighting, let's see, fighting Frenchman. But Adrian never really gets her due. So we made the female mouse. Um, we made her name Adrian after Lafayette's wife, and she does in the story meet Adrian. She goes and teaches to the school children as well. And I actually came up with a second mouse that's a boy, because we are hoping someday that we could have Lin-Manuel Miranda sort of give the American Friends of Lafayette a shout out, and and he only has sons. So we made a little boy mouse, and the two of them are friends. They're actually cousins in the story, and the little boy mouse is named after my brother James, and my mother-in-law called them house mice. So it was a really fun experience. Another thing I thought would be fun, because I've been asked, sort of why this particular book and why this passion for Lafayette. I'm going to share something that really no one's ever seen. So anyone who is as passionate about Lafayette as I am, at the farewell tour, you could see we were on the front page of the New York Times, which is pretty exciting. So, I say, why do I continue to do this? Because I love the people I meet. And we have I will say, the friends that we've met through the American Friends of Lafayette have been incredible. And one of the people that we met when I was asked to lay the wreath at Lafayette's grave in Paris was the eighth generation descendant named Virginie Lafayette. And she has 6 children. My husband and I actually stayed with them in Normandy, and we invited them to come for the kickoff of the farewell tour. And when they did come, they were, after New York, they came to Connecticut to continue on with some of the tour in the Northeast. And the daughters stayed in our home, which is on the Rochambeau Trail. So if you're familiar with the W3R, and the route that Rochambeau took to march to and from Yorktown, our home, which is almost 300 years old in Connecticut, is right there. The daughters they were in college, absolutely total troopers during their time with us, which was about 3 weeks during the farewell tour. And they only stayed with us for a little under a week, but we had asked Adelaide to sign our guest book. And she's an artist, and this is what she drew. So hopefully you can all see this. I was absolutely blown away. Mind you, she almost missed a train to connect with Alan Hoffman, our president at the time, to go to Bunker Hill, but what an experience. That was absolutely amazing. And Lafayette College has actually asked for this. And another reason why I'm going to show you a really cool picture for any DAR ladies here. These two women are from the Rochambeau chapter in Paris. This is actually Lafayette's grave. And I was asked, as I said, in 2022 to lay the wreath at Lafayette's grave. And these are just two women. They're incredible that I met there. So anyone who's in Paris around the 4th of July, there's always a party in the 16th arrondissement. And what's really another fun fact is that Virginie Lafayette is a member of this chapter as well, who were very supportive in their visit to the United States. She only brought 2 of the 6 children. That would have been crazy if husband and the other 4 came too. But we had an incredible time with them. And let me just share with you. This is her uncle. So this is Gilbert Lafayette. So he is seventh generation Lafayette, and an absolute blown away. He gave me he had this SAR pin on, and he gave me his SAR pin as I gave him my scarf, the same scarf, or obviously another version. This is the Lafayette scarf that I have on. Really just, again, people. It's just a fun way, to connect people. We've met so many authors. This is another picture from Picpus. So it's a cemetery. For those of you who aren't familiar, Lafayette is not buried at Père Lachaise, which everybody assumes he is with, I think, Jim Morrison and other famous people in Paris. No, he was buried right next to, I don't know if my pointer actually shows, but you'll see a wall with a gate right sort of near the cross. It used to be 4th of July, now 5th of July, there's a ceremony where the American flag is actually changed. And here is, let's see if I can show you the military. They fold the flag. So this is Lafayette's grave. Next to him is Adrian's grave, but here is the grave site. Let's see if I can see this one. If I can bring this one over to the screen. This is, let's see if I can get that to come up over here. It's not gonna work, but let's see. I'm moving the Zoom screen. Yeah, I won't show you that one. Anyway, right here, but beyond this wall is where Adrian's mother, sister, and grandmother were murdered during the Reign of Terror. So Lafayette asked not, he wanted to be buried next to Adrian. She died much earlier because of his imprisonment. So she moved into the prison with him when he was, 5 years in a dank, horrible, solitary confinement. She was allowed to go in, and she moved in with the two daughters. George Washington Lafayette, their only son, was actually sent to George Washington so that he wouldn't be executed. But just beyond the that sort of wall that you see there is a mass grave for 1,300 people who were beheaded during the Reign of Terror. And so it's a very moving place. And what's really interesting about the American flag is that Hitler did not realize that Lafayette was buried here and that an American flag flew even during German occupation. So there's so much you learn about history and about this incredible man. And, so much of it is taught to adults or not taught to adults. I will tell you, there was a huge uptick in who Lafayette was after Hamilton came out. The American Friends of Lafayette gained many, many additional members as a result. And then through Lafayette200.org, if you want to follow where the tour is, that's, I would highly recommend people doing that because it's a really amazing experience to have, to be with like-minded people. Again, it's all about the people. It's really an incredible experience to have there's so many people here that we've met that are new friends as well. But to be able to teach something to children and capture them. We actually in Connecticut this summer did an event for a local colonial town. I mean, we live obviously in a very old town, and they asked me to speak to the children, and it was a very hot day. Luckily, we had shade under a tent, and we were able to corral about a half a dozen to a dozen children in the shade, and the 2-year-old sat. I think it was because of the mice, and sat and really paid attention. And the kids asked great questions, just like at the French Embassy. And I've also taught at schools. I spent an entire day, I think it was 6 8th grade classes in Connecticut. The kids were absolutely fascinated. So it's been an amazing experience. And, teaching about, again, the whaling is a little difficult, but yes, you can go to a whaling museum in Nantucket. Yes, you can go to the Historical Society. You can go to bookstores. You can feel what colonial America really felt like because it's been so well preserved. Unfortunately, we've never figured out what kind of cheese it was, but it was a 500-pound cheese that did sailed across. Our mice came. Well, maybe that part is fiction, but the mice delivered the cheese. But it was really delivered, and it got to both their home uh, in Paris, but it also got out to Chauvignac. And Chauvignac is the childhood home of Lafayette in the country. And they prided themselves, Adrian and Lafayette prided themselves in feeding the village. And so they shared it, not just because they probably had an abundance of cheese, but they also felt that they wanted to share, and they would tell people that it was a gift from their friends in America. And one of the things, this is also so cute. One of the things when I spoke to the eighth graders in Connecticut is I asked them how many people write thank you notes. And there were a handful of kids, but not many. So it was a teachable moment for the eighth grade social studies teacher, because she then said, "Okay, everybody." And the next thing you know, I received like 100 thank you notes from these kids. And so we tried to weave in lessons that we all on this call, I'm sure, taught our own children or grandchildren and we also added a few French words, key French words, so the kids could start to learn. I don't speak French, unfortunately, but we have a counting game. We have little cheeses, so there's a search on it. The nice thing is when you don't have a publisher telling you what you can do and what you can't do, again, as long as it's okay to write about, you can put anything you want. And we decided not to do hardcover. I will tell you, in KDP, you cannot publish in hardcover. I think it's 500 pages that you have to have in order. And just for those of you who don't understand, or never, I didn't until I did this, it's on-demand publishing. So if someone on this call orders a book, it literally goes electronically to a printer selected by Amazon. The printer then has the file, they printed it, and it goes to you. So it's not an overnight. The mice actually only come, the orders come to me directly, or they'll be available at a bookstore called Mitchell's in Nantucket, if we're lucky enough that they pick up our mice, which we hope we are. We've sold a number of them directly to people who understand the story and love the story. So, it really is an add-on. It was a woman that I met in New York City and the mice really were the inspiration. I had two that didn't look like ours. I should say they weren't dressed like ours. It was a female artist in Australia who was at a gift show in Manhattan, and I saw her at Christmas time and asked her. I mean, that's the thing, you just ask. And I asked her if she could change the outfits and make them the inspiration. So when Julia, who did the illustrating, she was actually getting a master's degree and holding 2 other jobs. So she did the illustrations from about 10 to midnight. So don't tell me this generation's lazy. They are not. At least this kid wasn't, and she was just incredible. So she took the image of the mice and then asked the artist to change the clothing on the mice to match what we wanted. And the artist actually is the one who suggested to put the foot on the name of each of, the James and Adrian on the foot of the mice. So that was really fun to have that as part of our overall experience. And then we had just had this fun woman in Nantucket take these fabulous pictures and get us into the Nantucket Book Festival. They sell books. I should say there's a tent that has books available for sale, and we were selected to be one. And that's the first photo that I showed you. Julia and I were there at the book festival, and I think our favorite fan was a 4-year-old who was just absolutely taken by the whole story in the book. So you just never know what's going to spark interest and sort of grab someone's heart. And we have a neighbor who bought the book, and he's reading it to his 2-year-old. And he says, maybe we get through a page or two, but it's kind of starting to sink in. And, too, what can you really understand? But to be part of his own personal library is a huge honor for me. I probably give away more than I should, as my husband's like, "Stop." but but it's fun. As again, I'm just trying to get the message out to as many people as possible, with America 250 coming especially. So this has been just a dream for me. I'm a CPA, so I'm a total numbers person, and I woke up one morning and just said, "That's it. I'm writing the book. We couldn't get it published again, so I'm gonna do it." And it's fun to do talks like this too, to get other people inspired. So many of us have books, sort of ideas in our head, and think that it's a bigger deal to get their message out there. So the story is, as I had been shared by other women who have written for and about Lafayette, to to be able to share their stories too. So I am open for questions. Deborah, do you want to fire away if anyone has questions?
Okay. Let's see here. What inspired your interest in writing the book about Marquis de Lafayette?
I would say, again, probably my inspiration was really the story with Alan Hoffman, and saying, that Alan, the president of the American Friends of Lafayette, saying that that was his favorite book, which there's so many good books, and we all, if you have been on this series, which is so wonderful, you guys are doing this. There's so many excellent books about Lafayette. We actually even gave a symposium at Fairfield University last fall. It blew me away. It far exceeded my expectations. And I'm just always wanting to sort of champion Lafayette's values of being a proto-feminist, a friend of the Native American, and an abolitionist. And whatever we can all do to promote those stories. Wow. And so I was inspired by Alan's talk at the New York Historical Society so long ago. Yes.
Okay. Suzanne has just chimed in. She says, will you attend the tour events on July 27th and 28th in Lancaster area?
Right now, we tried in the beginning to go to as many as possible, and we continue to try, but it's not on my radar yet, but I probably will. We are going, my sister, and I'll tell you a cool story too. My sister is coming to New Orleans as well. My husband, despite tax season, is going. And Lancaster, I do hope, yeah, it's close enough. It's driving distance. That certainly is easier. Believe it or not, to get from Naples, Florida to New Orleans used to be impossible. We used to have to go north to go south. But now we have Breeze Airline that's going to take us there in a nonstop flight. So we'll be in New Orleans doing, and we did a fundraiser, and I had a dress made, and my husband has the whole outfit, the top hat, all from basically, sort of the early 19th century, not 18th century. So we will be coming in costume. I will have a purple dress and will not probably do my hair that I did in New York, but yeah. So I love going to the events. Philly, we did the Philly events with and Mark Schneider. We love our reenactors are just fabulous.
Okay. Wendy has sent in a message. What is one thing among many that you have learned that strikes you the most about our favorite Frenchman?
Strikes me the most. Well, I think the more I learned about his compassion for people and his values and how he carried them all the way to his deathbed, just the depth of, it's one thing to be a friend of, yes, to be a friend of, say you're a friend of the Native American, but then you learn they actually gave him a name, Kauai That it wasn't sort of just surface. And he was so humble about everything. And as my husband just reminded me, he was a proto-feminist. So he had a vision. He knew we needed to abolish slavery. There are so many quotes, so many things that he said that are quoted to this day that said, wait a minute, I wouldn't have fought for a country to free all men if it didn't include women and people of color. Those are the things that I learned. Like, this isn't just kind of a, a nut, a normal person. This man is so admirable. So I think that's what I found is there was no like peeling the onion and finding bad things.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And Wendy has also sent, I invite you and your family to the Morristown, New Jersey event on July 13th to see our parade and something very special, a new composition titled The Lafayette Suite, composed by the musical director of the Baroque Orchestra of New Jersey.
Well, thank you. Well, I am going to extend an invitation. Most people don't know we are putting together Chuck Schwam, absolutely love and absolutely insane, called me after we ran the New York event. He said, can we do a 4th of July event? So just today, we have already booked. It's only going to, we have 40 hotel rooms in Manhattan for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of July. We are going to have a dinner cruise. Now, mind you, it's all going to be, it's very expensive to be in the 4th New York City to take a dinner cruise to see the Macy's Day Parade. So that's been our struggle, is to how to make that reasonable. But we have a parade that we're going to jump onto with the people who run the LMHA, Lower Manhattan Historical Association. So there's going to be a bunch of stuff going on in Manhattan. So anyone who could commute in or stay, Chuck is going to release that. If you're not a member, just go to Lafayette200.org. It's very inexpensive to join this fabulous group of people. But thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome.
And we, like I said, we here in Lancaster would love to have you whenever you could attend. We're planning a very lovely ball for Sunday night, the 27th.
Love balls. We love
Yes.
balls. We went to the one at the Masonic Lodge in Philly in October. Unfortunately, Philadelphia had rain the entire time. So I felt so bad for them because we were lucky in New York. Not only not have rain, but we didn't have oppressive heat in August either. So we got lucky.
Well, and this is in a historic building that Lafayette actually passed when he
Wow.
was here in Lancaster. So we would hope you could join us,
Oh,
Susan.
terrific, terrific.
Okay. Let me see here. What made you decide to tell the story from the perspective of a house mouse?
Again, it's cheese, so it came up. It was this crazy moment when I love going to, kind of find gift and arts and crafts thing. And when I saw this mouse, it was like I had that light bulb that goes above your head. You're like, oh, that's it. When you're trying, it was Simon and Schuster who owns the rights to the 1950s book, but it doesn't have an ISBN. So I actually asked them, and Alan and I asked them, can you legally please find out, can we re-release this? And then when we just battled and battled, that's when I saw the mouse, and I still have it. He's in a little green corduroy outfit, unlike mine that are dressed more red, white, and blue. But that it was like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. And then one morning, and I don't get up early in the morning, so thankfully this was night, and my husband comes downstairs from our home in Connecticut, and I'm up early, and he's shocked. And I'm writing away, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. I have to finish this. So it was fun to have this, like, I have it. I know I'm going to write it.
Okay. And how can individuals purchase the book?
Amazon, or the easiest way to get to it, because it's not going to be high up on a search, is Lafayette200 Bicentennial.com. So that's a long URL. If you go to just put Nantucket Cheese, it's Lafayette Saves Nantucket. Yeah. I have it right here. I don't know if you guys can see. That's what the book looks like. But you can go to Amazon, or you go to LafayetteSavesNantucket.com.
Okay. Is there a closing message you would like to send to everyone about La Marquis de Lafayette, your distant cousin?
Just, I would say for people to really understand what his values were, how he didn't chastise people for not sharing his values. He lived his values and really showed other people that he didn't see color. He didn't see race. He didn't see religion. He didn't see male versus female. He just treated everyone the same. And boy, what a world we'd have if we respected each other in the same way. I mean, that
Yeah.
would be my takeaway. That and join American Friends of Lafayette because we are really fun and cool.
Yes, this has been an extremely fun venture for us to be planning this event coming up. We're very pleased that he stayed 2.5 days here in the city. And we also had General Hand, who lived here in Lancaster County, who was Washington's adjutant general.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's exciting. That's so exciting. I know it's exhausting, so hang in there. Hang in there. It's the unexpected, but it's worth it. We had just incredible time when we finally got the NYPD to close down Broadway. That was our real coup. And then getting into City Hall in New York City just before the mayor was making some sort of announcement with, we got in there with 200 people when they said 60, that's it. I'm like, well, maybe my math is off. So it was cool.
yes, and I myself think it's really cool that he lived his values from such an early age until the Lord laid him low.
Exactly. And that he learned, so my parting is he learned them from the women in his life. So it was his mother went back to Versailles for a while, but he lived with his aunt and his grandmother. And then when he was brought to live in Paris, it was his mother-in-law who shared this enlightened view and challenged him not to just sort of think the way everyone else thinks. I was impressed when I found that out. Woo, love it.
Yeah, it does make a good thing. Actually, I am out of questions then for tonight, Susan.
Terrific. Terrific. Well, thank you, ladies. Wow, this was fun.
Susan, thanks so much for a delightful presentation. We enjoyed hearing about your fun book and the fascinating experiences that you're having with American Friends of Lafayette and the Lafayette200 Bicentennial. Please know that tonight's program with Susan has been recorded and will be made available later viewing on our YouTube channel, Lafayette200 Marquis Mondays. We have enjoyed hosting Susan, Debbie, and all of you this evening and invite you to attend our next Marquis Monday that will take place on St. Patrick's Day, Monday, March 17th, with author Lloyd Kramer, who is the author of Lafayette in Two Worlds, Personal Cultures and Personal Identities in an Age of Revolutions. Until then, bonsoir. Good night, everyone.